Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Committee here at BCP. Firstly, can I ask the officer just to run through the housekeeping, please?
Thank you, Chair. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 1 on this morning's agenda, apologies for absence.
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Paul Hilliard and Councillor Emily Harman.
Thank you. And item 2, substitute members?
None received.
Thank you. Members, item 3, declarations of interest with regards to the items on this morning's agenda. Thank you, members. Item 4, confirmation of minute. To confirm and sign as a correct record the minutes of the Licensing Committee meetings held on the 11th of December 2025 and the Licensing Subcommittee meetings held on the 10th and 16th of December 2025 and the 7th and the 21st of January 2026, together with the 18th of February 2026. Are members happy that I sign those as a true and correct record?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 5, public issues. Are there any public issues as well?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6, taxi licensing fee setting for 2026-2027. Nananka, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the report before you is to consider the level of fees charged by the BCP Council for the administration of the Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing regime. The report sets out that the fees have been fully reviewed this year and calculated on a cost recovery basis, taking into account staff costs, staff time, and obviously the direct and indirect costs associated with the service. I don't really know what to say. It's been a calculation. We've worked through each process line by line with the sign off by our accounts officer, who is happy that it does set a cost recovery position, using up the money that we had collected in previous years for the unmet needs survey, which is why some fees have not gone up as much as others, because the unmet needs survey was related to Hackney Carriage licensing fees. So I don't know whether you wanted me to go through the fees line by line and an explanation, Chair.
Thank you, Nananka. Would members be happy for the officer to run through the list as per Appendix 1? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Appendix 1 sets out our current fees, the proposed fees, and then just for clarity, I added whether it's an increase or decrease and the percentage, because I think in previous years people have sort of said, oh, you know, what is that? What does that increase or decrease mean? So we've got the private hire vehicle replacement fee for vehicles, so that's going from £118 to £145. And the Hackney Carriage vehicle replacement fee is from £163 to £195. So they're both increased by about 20-23%. And then the private hire vehicle licence, which is the annual vehicle licence, which is reissued every year, that's going up from £192 to £200. That's a 4% increase. But then the Hackney Carriage vehicle licence, which is again an annual fee, is going down from 243 to 205, and that's reflecting the offset with the unmet needs survey income that was attached to those fees previous years. And then you've got the transfer of vehicle licence. So when you've got a proprietor and they're transferring the licence from one person to another, that is changing from 99 to 120. So that's a 21% increase. And then you've got the temporary vehicle authorisation is going down from 187 to 87 to 80, which is an 8% decrease. And then you've got the replacement plate is reduced from £71 to £55. It's a 16% decrease. Replacement door insignias, that's for Hackney Carriage. That's the big stickers that are on the side of them with their numbers. That's going from £54 to £55. Not too sure if that's a 16% increase there. Might have got that a bit wrong. And then private hire livery exemption is a new fee this year because it was something that was added into the policy at the beginning of the year. That's a £50 fee. And then we get to the drivers' fees. So new drivers application fee, including the first knowledge test, is going from £190 to £200. That's a 5% increase. The knowledge test resit, so once they've sat it once, if they fail, they have to resit again. That is going from £82 to £80, so there's a reduction of 2%. The driver reissue, which is the biggest number I think we have of single types of application, that's going from £379 to £380. So it's an increase of a pound, basically. So it's 0% increase. And then you've got the change of details, replacement of driver badge is going from £33 to £35, which is a 6% increase. And a dual licence is staying the same, £55. So that's if you've got a Hackney Carriage and you've got private hire, and then you've got more than one Hackney Carriage zone, basically. You pay for that. And then you've got a copy of your PDF licence, so your paper licence, a lot of people seem to lose them, so that's a £10.50 fee. And then operators, this is the single biggest increase. So the application for the new operator's licence is going up from £77 to £160, which is a £108 increase. Within the body of the report, I did explain that is due to the quite intensive officer time taken to review those and to assess the business, the premises. We get quite a lot of businesses now that have sort of virtual offices within the BCP area because they're app-based, and the test checks that we have to do on DBSs and things like that, and safeguarding have all ramped up over the years for those. But that is a one-off. That's just their first application, and then every 5 years after that, it's the reissue, and that's going from £333 to £335, so that's a 1% increase. And then for the larger ones where there's more than 10 vehicles, we charge them a fee for every 10 vehicles, which is going from £33 to £45, because that increases obviously the amount of enforcement and action we take with regard to those businesses. And just for comparison, I did provide an appendix to a sort of a benchmarking exercise that you will see, which sort of puts what we're proposing into context with neighbouring authorities, larger authorities in some cases. So you'll see with the vehicles, the new replacement private hire fee, our proposal is 145. Southampton, it's 180. In Weymouth, it's 224, and in other areas of Dorset, it's 190. And New Forest, it's just been approved, I think this week, it's £177. The Hackney Carriage, again, we're £195. Southampton's 180, but Dorset's 190, and in Weymouth it's 240, and Southampton it's 177. So we're not too far out of the realms of sort of similar authorities in that case. The private hire vehicle licence, again, 200. It's 160 at Southampton, but again, 223 in Weymouth, and 177 in the New Forest. And Hackney Carriage, we're 205, 180 in Southampton, 223 Weymouth. If you go through, you'll see our operator licence fee, particularly even though it's going up to £160. Southampton, it's £1,500. Dorset, it's 416, and the New Forest, it's 533. So we're still quite competitive in those ways. If anyone's got any questions.
Thanks, Narenka. Any questions? Councillor Howell.
Well, operator, I mean, I say competitive, it's comparable, should I say then? But operators have to have a license in the area where they want to use drivers and vehicles. So the operators, there's that 3 license lock, as it were. But that's why we've got United here. We've got United Dorset. So they've got they have multiple licenses. Uber have got multiple licenses everywhere as well.
Okay, thanks. So in terms of the timesheets now, which is a really good thing, something I've been talking about for a while in the council, that should go on. Are we full cost recovery now in terms of the service? Now we understand how much, and if we are, how can Southampton justify 1,500? They're not allowed to charge more.
Obviously, I can't comment on what they
They
do. You know, all I can comment on is our systems and our processes. They may have different processes and systems. I really don't know. They might have different checks and balances. I'm not sure. You know, we follow best practice, but you know, we're comfortable that is a cost recovery for us with that. I think with operators, yeah, it's a 5-year license, and we do get complaints come through, but mostly it's operators referring issues that are actually related to a driver or a vehicle. So we don't have a lot of issues or compliance issues with operators, if you see what I mean. We will be doing some proactive compliance checking this year, and that might raise issues, which might mean that next year we have to put some more time against those licenses. But as it stands at the moment, we're comfortable that the amount of time that we've said that we'll do compliance checking for operators is feasible and cost recovery.
Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. Just one on the process. I see that, you know, after this meeting, then it goes to consultation, and it's only if there's some objections, so it comes back to committee. Just wonder why we have 2 meetings, because it would seem to me that you only need one. You know, it's the first time I've seen any council meeting have an agreement preceding a consultation. Normally you have a public consultation, you take that into account when you're making the decisions. Here we've not got any public view on what's being proposed. We have not taken those into you know, if there are some, presumably some people will make some, and when we've got to have another meeting to discuss them. I just think it seems a little odd, the process that we have here. I don't know if I wondered if it was a statutory requirement that we do it like this. I don't know.
I'll ask the question.
Well, the council, I mean, it's really the way it's set out in our constitution. So it says the licensing committee. So we need to have a fee to consult on, and it's just the way that it has been done. So the council have got to make the fee. So we've got to have a fee to consult on.
So we have to agree it in order to go to consultation.
But I take your point. But yeah, it's just the way it has been done, and we've just followed it. Yeah.
Nanaka, please.
Well, I'm not adverse to doing it the other way around, but I didn't know. I just, it's the way it's always been done, so I've done it. If members are happy for us to do the calculation, publicise it without you knowing, as it were, and then then only coming back to you once we've got that information, if we get any. I mean, we've consulted every year for the last few years, and we've never got any feedback. That's not to say we won't, you know, but it is only on the fee. The consultation isn't all of the fees. That's the thing. The driver's fees isn't subject to consultation. It's only the vehicle and the operators. But I take your point. I mean, I'm quite happy to do that. If there's an instruction, we can amend it going forward.
Well, I suppose the thing, rather, we can look at it, and I can look at the constitution. I think that's probably best, rather than sort of make a promise now. But we can certainly look and read what the legislation says and what our constitution says. I mean, at the moment, it does talk about the fees being made here.
Would it need to go to the working party? Yeah.
What, the Constitution
Yeah.
Working Party? Possibly.
Yeah.
Oh, if
Yeah.
we had to change something, it would definitely. Yeah.
Councillor Richardson.
Yes, I
Oh,
just
sorry,
wanted,
I do beg your pardon. Firstly, welcome to the committee, Councillor Farr. Councillor Farr did raise his hand more or less at the same time as Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just had a question about the increase for the operators, when the new application for operators, where it's an increase of 108,000, where you did explain some background of that sort of big jump, but I was just wondering whether is that big jump because there hasn't been an increase for a few years. Obviously I'm new to I'm coming back on here, so I'm not really fully up to date.
So when BCP was formed, we did did an exercise of identifying all of the processes and all of the officers' time that took to look at applications and things like that. And then since then, so for the last few years, the fees have been just subject to a inflationary percentage increase across the board. So this year we have gone back to the drawing board and gone through and just reevaluated and made sure all the officer time is correct. And what we found is the officer time taken on operator applications is a lot more than it was 3 or 4 years ago, which is why that fee has increased more than others. And that is because the guidance that was changed, the operators policy has got more requirements for checks for their frontline staff. We do see more online out of town operators coming here and then having virtual offices, which we require them to have a letting agreement, and we do all of those checks before we will issue their license, so that we know that they are meeting the legislative requirement of having an office in this area and somewhere we can come to view their records that meets the criteria. But all of that takes a lot more time than a traditional operator who has got an office. It's here. This is the address, and we know where we do. So there's more checks and balances that are taking place. So it just takes a bit more officer time. So that's reflected in that.
Councillor Richardson.
yeah, the previous point, I just wanted to say I find it quite useful to have a meeting to keep up to date on these things. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. What we'll do is if we're finished with the questions, are members happy with the fee structure as set out, and with an addendum that we ask the officer to look at the possibility of changing the process, whether there's a need to go to the Constitution Working Party to amend that or not? So are members happy with that? Okay. No. Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, I have some concern about the impact on people on low incomes, and the fact that these costs obviously are then passed on through the fares, and you know it's as if the public really, particularly those that are disadvantaged by these escalating costs and everything that we have, a cost of living crisis, can't keep up with it. And for some people are entirely dependent on taxis, for their transport, and particularly the disabled groups. And I see that the extent of some of these rises are quite high, and we could probably, this is more to do with the next issue that we're going to come on to discuss. But obviously, the impact of the charges made by the council will pass through into the way that taxi fees are charged. And so I just have a general concern that that we need to really consider these costs very, very carefully. And that was sort of behind what I was sort of alluding to before, that at the moment we're making sort of a decision subject to there being no objections, but actually there may be a lot of views from many people about what is being proposed here. But it's just a general comment, and I just felt I had to express it, But, you know, I accept that there's been a lot of work that's gone into this and a careful analysis of the overall effect on the way the council charges are collected, and it's got to pay for, it's got to wash its own face effectively, hasn't it? And I can see, and I wouldn't want to second guess any of that. But I just feel that the impact on people on low incomes, and particularly those with disabilities, we've really got to think about that carefully when we make these decisions, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Yeah, I understand your point of view. Clearly, I haven't got consensus on this. So, Naneka.
I was just going to say, you know, as part of this process, an equalities impact needs assessment is undertaken, and those aspects are all considered within that, and we have to balance that against the fact that we have to be on a cost neutral basis to provide the service. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to provide the service, as it were. And I think some of the concerns that you're raising are probably more about what the taxis are charging rather than what we are charging. And I know what you're saying is, but you know, they are a business and that is subject to competition. And part of our, you know, what we've said is, you know, we understand that they play a big role in the nighttime economy and transporting, you know, contract work. So it is, we have looked at all of that, and that is part of our considerations as well.
Councillor Bartlett, are you happy with the response from the officer in terms of the consensus? Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, members. Right, we're moving on then to item 7. Can I invite Mr. David Lane to come to the table, please?
Do you want to go back? I've got that they all approved.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to? Sorry, just for the record, can we just go back to item 6? Can I just confirm that the committee agree the proposed fees as stated?
Correct.
Thank you.
Plus an addendum to look at.
The constitution.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Good morning, David. Members, David Lane is the taxi trade representative who's joining us for item 7 this morning. Please could I ask Trudy to introduce the item, please?
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Thank you. We have received a formal request from BCP Taxi and Private Hire Association submitted by Mr. Lane asking the council to amend the current Hackney carriage tariff as operating costs for drivers such as fuel, insurance and vehicle maintenance have increased. The committee is being asked to consider whether to approve, amend or refuse the proposed changes. Section 65 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976 provides the authority for the council to set the maximum fare for Hackney carriages. Whilst the tariff covers all Hackney carriage in BCP, you should all be aware that they are still licensed within each zone of the legacy authority zones of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. This is a maximum fare that any Hackney carriage can charge for journeys within their zone. They are able to offer discounts to that price and charge less, but not more. The last tariff was approved in March 2024, and any amendment would apply across all 3 Hackney zones in the BCP area. The request includes detailed reasoning from the taxi trade, and Mr. Lane will be speaking on this matter further. The proposed change this year is not an overall percentage increase of the fares as is usual, but a revamp of the structure of the fares. The changes are proposed to take effect from the 5th of May 2026. The proposals include higher first mile fares for daytime, nighttime and Christmas New Year rates, removal of the extra charges for luggage and additional passengers, a change of the time band for nighttime tariff. This is proposed to be applicable from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Currently, it is midnight to 6:30 a.m. The nighttime fare will also include a reduction in the charge of the mile rate after the initial first mile from £3.82 to £3.50. For the first time, there will be new separate rates for larger vehicles when carrying more than 4 passengers. This is in line with many neighbouring authorities as indicated in Appendix 4. A single £2 booking fee will be for all pre-booked journeys. Comparison with other local authorities. Nationally, BCP is currently ranked 44th for the 2-mile fare. The proposed increase would move BCP to 9th in the national table. As required by the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act, any approved change must be advertised for 14 days. If no objections are made, the new tariff will come into force on the appointed date of the 5th of May. If any objections are received, they must be considered before a final decision is implemented. There are risks and benefits either way. Increasing fares could create affordability concerns, but failing to do so may affect drivers' vehicle retention and reduce overall availability. Members are being asked to decide whether to approve the proposed changes, amend them, or retain the current tariff. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy. Do members have any questions at all for the officer? No? Okay. Can I invite David to address the committee then, please? Good morning, David.
Good morning. Mr. Chair and members, as a representative of the BCP Taxi and Private Hire Association, I am submitting this request for a review of the current 2024 Charter of Maximum Fares that may be charged by Hackney carriages for journeys within this licensing area. Such requests are normally for a percentage increase to be applied to both the first and subsequent miles. The charge for the first mile is higher, as this recognises the time the driver often waits for jobs. Extra fees may also be charged for each additional passenger over one, items of luggage, and a pre-booked or running-in fee. However, this year we are aware of the continuing pressure on the cost of living and the fact that on a league table of fares compiled by a trade magazine, we are placed near the top and certainly above surrounding licensing areas. We would therefore like to take the opportunity to simplify and modernise the fare structure, whilst only increasing fares over a 2-hour period. Our first request relates to rate 1. We would suggest an increase in the first mile charge from £5.66 to £6.66, to be achieved by increasing the initial charge or flag. However, we are also suggesting the abolition of all extra fees. As extra fees are currently added to the fare at the end of the journey, they are frequently the cause of disagreement between driver and passengers. For many journeys, the effect would be that the increase in the flag would be totally offset by the abolition of the extra charges. We can now look at rate 3. This rate is currently only applicable from 18:30 on Christmas Eve to 6:30 on the 27th of December, and from 18:30 on the 31st of January to 6:30 on the 2nd of January. It is effectively a 50% uplift on the rate 1 charge, not the double that most customers believe we charge at Christmas. We are seeking to maintain the same differential going forward, so the first mile charge would rise to £8.49 from £9.49. However, linking to our proposed changes to rate 2, the rate 3 supplement would now cease at 0600 on the 27th of December and the 2nd of January. Rate 2. This is the nighttime or antisocial rate, but unlike in all surrounding licensing areas and others nearby, it is only operational from midnight to 06:30. We would like to take this opportunity to synchronise the timings in our area with those in the surrounding areas. This would mean changing the times of our nighttime rate to 2200 to 0600. We recognise that this would be a substantial increase to anyone travelling between 2200 and midnight, and to offset this would suggest a reduction in the subsequent mile rate from £3.82 to £3.50. The availability of taxis is an important part of women's safety, especially at night. Our fares should be set so that vulnerable passengers are not encouraged to take alternative, unlicensed and therefore uninsured and illegal transport options, but high enough for the drivers to earn a living wage, which is reflective on the unsocial hours they are working. It is our opinion that the policies recently agreed and introduced set some of the highest standards for drivers and vehicles in the country. However, not enhancing the rate until midnight runs the risk of fewer BCP drivers being available and the shortfall being made up from drivers from other licensing areas who are not subject to such rigorous standards and are earning the enhanced rates as approved by their licensing authority. Multi-seat vehicles. The provision of vehicles suitable for the transport of between 5 and 8 passengers requires a substantially greater investment than for those which are only available to transport a maximum of 4 passengers. Up until now, this has been somewhat recognised by allowing an extra £2 to be charged in addition to the standard fare. The higher investment has increased following the changes to the style of vehicles that can be licensed to carry more than 4 passengers, such as vehicles such as the Peugeot 5008, Ford Galaxy or Volkswagen Charan are rightly no longer able to be licensed to convey 6 passengers. We would like to take the opportunity of this review to introduce 3 new rates only applicable when 5 or more passengers are being transported, and these rates would be 50% higher than the appropriate standard rate. This would mean that a party of 5 to 8 passengers could travel together for 50% less than in 2 standard taxis. Again, this is already common practice in other local authority areas. Pre-arranged bookings. Although this chart of fares strictly only applies to hackney carriages, which are normally hired from rank or hailed in the street, an immediate booking, there is nothing stopping a hackney carriage driver agreeing to pick up a customer at a pre-arranged place and time. The current chart allows the charging of a £1 or £1.25 as a booking fee for each pre-arranged booking. As this level of fee was set at the time that the fares were standardised across the 3 towns when BCP Council was formed, our final request is for it to be increased to a maximum of £2 across the board. Whilst the approved maximum fares only apply to hackney carriage journeys wholly within their zone, it is also a requirement for private hire vehicles that are equipped with a meter or equivalent charging device to not charge more than the maximum meter fare. The £2 charge is only equivalent to less than that charge for the first 600 yards of an immediate booking, and the driver could have travelled up to 5 miles within a zone in order to be on time to honour the booking. A private hire driver could have to travel even further, as their zone is the entire BCP area. Currently, this is regarded as an extra, and we would suggest that this continues with the button being set to charge this in one press. Thank you for receiving this request. I am willing to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, David. Members, do members have any questions for Mr. Lane at all? Councillor Filer.
Yes, I've got a question. It was at the very first part of your talk, so I might have misheard it or forgotten it. And it was about extras. Can you explain that a bit more? So that at the moment, there are some extras and you're proposing to not have those. Would that be things like rollators and wheelchairs and...
I was happy with the question until you mentioned the wheelchairs. No, I'm very happy with that. It is extras is a fee that taxis can charge by pressing a button on the meter, and it is set at 20 pence per item for additional passengers over the first passenger, and items of luggage, suitcases, not a problem. Shopping bags, always debatable. What is how much should be charged for a shopping bag? 14 shopping bags is a lot of extra fare. And drivers have been known to press the button as many times as they can get away with. Wheelchairs are exempt. They cannot be charged for. Rightly. And, you know, the majority of taxi drivers wouldn't even think of charging for road data or other items. But that is where the difference comes in putting the flag up, and not enabling those charges to be charged for.
Thank you, David. 'Cause there is a list of the charges included within the agenda package, Councillor Fowler. But yeah, did you have a supplementary? No. Okay. Councillor Howell.
It appears eminently sensible to me to adopt your approach of taking away the extras. I mean, that takes me back to travelling in the Middle East in taxis and arguing about luggage, backpacks, and whether you pay for that. But yeah, I mean, I'm on the point about additional charges for the different rates as opposed to the extras. I mean, how obvious is it to a passenger that the different rates are going to be applied? I'm a bit concerned that, you know, the taxi driver has the ability to apply a higher rate when it's not, you know, not applicable, and the passenger wouldn't necessarily notice that they're being charged a higher rate.
Condition of the fares within BCP, it's that the meter is calendarised by the professional who installs it and manages the update. So for a fare now, the taxi driver would initiate the fare, and it would be rate 1. It would be possible under this if he was a larger vehicle, to change from rate 1 to rate 4 for when there are more than 5 or more passengers in the vehicle. But that is the only time that they would be able to change the rate manually. Come 10 o'clock at night, the meter automatically changes to rate 2 and runs at rate 2 until 6 o'clock in the morning. And likewise over the Christmas, New Year periods, it is done by the clock in the calendar.
So if we were to adopt your proposal about the multi-vehicle rate, then how would that appear on the dashboard that the customer can actually see?
When he presses the button, an ordinary journey, it would be 566, and for a journey with 5 passengers on board, no, it wouldn't. Sorry, it wouldn't be 566. The flag would be £4, and if there were more than 4 passengers on board, the flag would start at £6, so they would see straight away.
David, can I just interrupt? Because the matrix that we have is the current 25 charge is 566, and the proposed is 766. No, sorry, 766 is with reference to the larger vehicles, so 5 to 8 passengers.
The
do beg your pardon. So the proposed is £9.99, but that takes
the initial charge. So when you get in, before it's pulled away, is £6, and then when for the first after the first mile, then it's £9.99. Is that right? Oh.
Thanks, Trudy.
Right, if we're talking about the tariff for 5 to 8 passengers, tariff 4 on the proposed new chart, the first mile will be £9.99 and then £4.29 per subsequent mile. That accounts for the pull-off and the waiting and everything else that they could have been done. The initial charge for a less than four passengers or less is £6.66 and £2.86. So it's basically, it's 1.5 times for a 5 to 8 passenger vehicle.
Thank you. So my understanding is that with that larger vehicle, if up to 4 people get in, it will be option 1, and if more than 4 get in, it will be option 2, and that's all pre-programmed into the meter. So I've got that right.
That is
and the meter installation is overseen by the BCP authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The obviously, should a driver of a larger vehicle select rate 4 when there's only 2 or 3 passengers in the car, that would be subject to passenger complaint and enforcement by the licensing team.
There is a requirement for all Hackney carriages to have the fare chart on display in the vehicle at all times. So they should be able to, you know, if there is a query from the passenger should be able to clearly see what rate they should be charged. Yes.
Thank you for that. Right. Okay. Well, I'm happy with that personally. Explanation. Any further questions at all? Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you. Could I ask what's roughly the percentage of business which is conducted between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock of the overall taxi services, would you suggest?
A lot less than it used to be, I'm afraid to say. And one of the problems the trade are having is actually getting BCP drivers to not take a longer than normal break in the period between 10 and 12, because they think that is a time when they're not being paid as much as they warrant for working at that time of day. So they sort of have their burger and chips or whatever, and then come back on at 12, which means that a lot of the work at that time of day can be covered by drivers from adjacent local authority areas, which gives rise to our concerns about the safety that we've tried to set up.
One of my observations is that it's these and people just have the company apps, order a taxi, and the private hire cab pulls up exactly where you want it, and they don't have to walk and find a taxi rank or hail somebody in the street. So I think that's one of probably a contributory factor as well.
Absolutely, and though today is based on Hackney carriages, there are those amongst us that think the day of the Hackney carriage is numbered by the introduction of apps and what have you, because of the convenience that they give to the customer. You don't have to walk from the pub down to a taxi rank, or keep your eye open for one coming towards you down the road. As the chairman says, you get the private hire vehicle or pre-booked Hackney carriage to come to you.
No, it didn't actually, Chair. But could I just associated with that, what do the neighbouring sort of areas? What is their nighttime rate? When do they start? Is it is theirs at 10 o'clock?
Yes, the surrounding areas all run from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, fine. Am I right in my first question in another way? would you say that the business conducted between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock is the busiest time for most taxi drivers? And that this change has potentially a significant change to the potential revenue that can be earned through the taxi service?
If the nighttime economy obviously is not as good as it was, but when that hopefully improves at some time, it will be a reasonably busy time. But the period just after midnight has always tended to be, in recent years, more busy than before. Before the licensing changes, it was 11 o'clock, 11 to midnight, but it tends to be a bit later now. The number of jobs well, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Can you?
I think the question was, the percentage of workload, at the peak time. Was it a peak time or not peak time? I noticed in the comparison list that most of the local authorities, adjoining authorities, are the same at 10 o'clock, but New Forest and Weymouth and Portland, they're 11 o'clock. So there is a slight difference, but
it is a bit busy time, but that is why we've also suggested the reduction in the running mile for that time, to reflect the fact that it will be rate 2 as opposed to rate 1, but we've reduced the running mile in rate 2 from £3.82 to £3.50 to offset it as much as we can.
Yeah, conversely, the balancing out would be for very short journeys, effectively. Once you get over that pound difference or whatever it's going to be, that is subsumed in the increase if the journey is a longer one. So there's, otherwise it would be pointless really making any changes. If all the journeys are short, there would be no effective change. So anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thanks, Chair.
thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. David, I'm having a bit of a struggle to understand this particular point which you raised. I mean, what caught my ear was public safety, particularly of women passengers, to make the Hackney carriage their first port of call, as opposed to usual words, other means and other adversaries. To my understanding, that a taxi from another area, even if it's a Hackney, can't rank on our ranks. My question is related to this unsociable hours, because the pitch which I'm hearing here is that we have a reluctance of our Hackney drivers to operate between 10 and 12, which puts women at risk. But you then spoke about that some Hackney drivers have a pre-booking system whereby for their favoured customers can pre-book. My question relates to, I can't grasp how it is that to resolve this issue that you have, or we have, of particularly women's safety, particularly for the nighttime economy, is that you have Hackney carriage drivers that are not prepared to work between 10 and 12 when they've been previously working in that way, because there is a fear of outside taxi authorities coming in and picking up that work. So my question is, how do you publicise, or how do you get the public, the paying public, particularly women travelling during those hours, to ensure that the Hackney carriage, which is what we're focused on here, is the safest method of travel. I mean, what is your sales pitch to the committee and to our public, which is at the forefront of all our safety concerns, not the revenue that's earned by your taxi drivers, to use your term, a living wage between 10 and 12. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, we work as a trade, we're working very closely with the Dorset Police on Taxi Watch, and they are being very effective in making the way to recognise a BCP hackney carriage or private hire vehicle known to students throughout the area and all manner of other organisations that they work with to promote and obviously the main operators will also advertise as they see fit. The independent taxi drivers, the ones that are sort of one-man bands, obviously provide the service on their reputation. Yeah, that they're there, and it is a combination of working with the local authority, the police, and what have you, of making the fact that our drivers and that are best vetted, the vehicles, standards are high. That goes on. For the timing of drivers having a break, it's not only the hackney carriage drivers, because the fares would apply also to any private hire vehicle. So and it is a case of, they tend to think now is the time. It goes quiet. It's sort of 10 o'clock. It begins to drop off the trade while everybody is enjoying themselves. So they go for a break, but they then don't come back as early as they used to. So there's a longer gap, and this gap is being filled by drivers from outside the area, and this is our concern. And by linking our times to the times where rate 2 is applied by other local authority areas, that should work itself through so that our drivers are there to provide the service, which means that the drivers from other local authority areas will be less tempted to come in and wait for a pre-booking through app or private hire operator.
Thanks, David.
Obviously a hackney carriage that comes in from outside the area cannot sit on a taxi rank or apply for hire. It has to wait for a pre-booking.
Did you have a supplementary at all?
I did, Chair. So just to confirm, then, because BCP licensed drivers, both hackney and private, are not providing the service between 10 and 12 because apparently it drops away, but then picks up again at around about 11 in the evening. There is swarms of taxis parked up elsewhere, ready to sweep in at quick notice from apps and from private hires. Is that what we're is that what you're telling the committee?
But they would be private hire.
Yes, but they'll be parked up waiting for that to get the call within the nighttime economy area.
Oh, they could be anywhere, couldn't they?
Yes.
But the point is, we're looking at hackney carriage.
Yes, absolutely. But the point is that we've just heard that our own private hire drivers are not picking up that trade either. They're not coming back. So I'm at a bit of a loss as regards how we're applying for public safety when we actually have BCP licensed drivers and vehicles not picking up the trade between 10 and 12.
Thanks for that, Councillor Farquhar. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And this is very much follow on from Councillor Farquhar's question. My understanding is that by bringing the nighttime rate forward to 10 p.m, we cure this problem by ensuring drivers are adequately recompensed for the antisocial hours, then increasing the volume of available Hackney carriages, and that would be supportive of vulnerable members of the community in the nighttime economy. Would you say that understanding is correct?
That is our aim and hope, that would resolve this situation that has built up over time. Yes, that, the drivers would be more encouraged to be available from 10 o'clock.
Councillor Howell.
Thank you. In terms of unintended consequences, I mean, if you do bring that forward, the argument is that there'll be more taxis around, but the counter argument is that people are less likely to take the taxis. And I'm thinking particularly of it seems to me that if there's, this is not a particularly environmentally strong argument, but if you're a single person wanting to get home, then taxi is expensive, much more expensive than if you're in a group of people that live close to each other, and therefore there's potentially quite a large market that you're missing out on by charging the same price for a single person. So is there some merit in terms of offering a reduced rate for a single person, and therefore increasing the volume of trade, which in itself would mean that the taxi drivers use their time more efficiently and don't need to be charged so much per journey as a consequence. You might pick up a lot of people who are leaving pubs between 10 and 12 who are single people that might jump in a taxi.
I quite agree, and what we're looking at today is the maximum fares that can be charged. All taxi drivers can reduce the fare, offer discount. A lot of the operators will encourage that by means of loyalty apps and what have you. So we are aware of the benefits of competition, and taxi drivers will do their best to be competitive.
Thank you, David. Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much to the Vice for explaining more eloquent the concern which I had, and I do appreciate that. So my follow-up question in that particular case was that we talked about consultations, as Councillor Bartlett said, maybe before. Can you drill into or supply the committee the confidence for what membership numbers that you've consulted on within the associations, that what percentage you're actually pushing for this, so that they will actually take up that extra trade between 10 and 12? So is that a fair question, Chair? Because I'm not seeing what I heard from David was that we hope that this will sort the situation out, but we're not got. And if it's in the papers, I do apologise. What percentage of the drivers are actually pushing for this, so that they'll actually take up tools and work?
What I would say at this point is that the authority meets on a regular basis with the trade, and I attended on Tuesday, the latest meeting, and it was a point that we were going to raise at the meeting anyway, with regards to other members going on to that trade meeting, so that you get a better idea of the trade and the opportunities that they have. the one point I would say is that I wasn't aware that there was a problem with taxis at 10 o'clock. So is it something that has been bubbling underneath or not?
As the association, we have a committee and we meet to discuss matters like this, and the committee members represent operators and independents, and they, feed into the at the committee meetings the views of the people they're regularly in contact with, while they're out working on the ranks and what have you. So that is the way that we get the thing. I think you probably got the number. It is something that is bubbling under the surface, and it's not being recognised because the gap is being filled by vehicles from out of the area, private hire vehicles. Their drivers can come. For instance, United have a BCP operation and they have a Dorset operation. If you phone United, you may get one or the other. If you get a BCP United vehicle at 10:30, they charge you at the moment rate 1. If they send you a Dorset licensed vehicle, which is quite possible, they'd be charging you rate 2. So, and this is something that is obviously confusing to the public, and as the chairman said, bubbling under the surface. And this is a way that would resolve a lot of that.
Or you're hoping that it
would
resolve
a lot of that, because we would be on the same timescale, as the others.
Understood. Just one quick question. As a body, do you advertise in the local establishments with regards to, ensuring that customers are hailing the correct vehicles?
Not regularly, but we have in the past put items on a Facebook group, or on Facebook to make it aware. And it is something that we can do. But as I said previously, a lot of the work has been coordinated through Taxi Watch with the police, so that they use their undoubted experts to promote the type of vehicle.
Thank you, David. Any further questions at all? Councillor Chapman-Law.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing with the rates being different depending on where the taxi's coming from is just insane. And also from knowing what to expect to be charged from the customer's perspective as well. It's just like to think that depending on which taxi you get will determine how much you get charged is just bonkers. And also, I mean, there has been a tendency for the alcohol licenses to not be as late as they used to be, and there are a lot more 10 to midnight closing establishments as well. So that I would be supportive of realigning the rates.
Nanka, would you be able to, or would you like to comment or not comment on where we stand legally with vehicles coming into, from East Dorset to the BCP? My personal view is that it would only be private hire, because they wouldn't have a Hackney licence to sit on the BCP ranks.
Exactly. Obviously, they can't sit on the ranks, and if they did try, we get the complaints very, very quickly, and we do report them to the licensing authority that they're from. But we don't get a lot. I've got to be honest. We had some reports about issues and concerns in Ashley Cross just before the Christmas period, and that was more of private hire vehicles being allegedly coming in and stealing people without pre-bookings. But we did an enforcement exercise with our colleagues from Dorset Council. Our officers went out and actually they all had pre-bookings. They weren't doing anything wrong. And, you know, they were just picking up passengers that had been pre-booked, which is obviously what can happen. It's legal. You know, the operator booking doesn't have to be in the area where the person's being picked up because they might live somewhere else. And, you know, Ashcross is sort of becoming quite a destination area. So we're not seeing, we do get a lot of, not a lot, we do get a number of complaints about vehicles that are not BCP licensed vehicles. But not that they're sitting on ranks or anything like that. It's just, you know, the passengers have complained they're not happy with the behaviour, and we deal with them in conjunction with our neighbouring partners.
Thank you, Nanaka. Any further questions at all? Any debate at all with regards to the options that are available us this morning? Councillor Filer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think it's been a very interesting debate, and it's quite clear that our lifestyles are changing rapidly. This week, yet another 2 nightclubs have closed, and there won't be there. You know, the nighttime economy, which was a huge issue just 6 or 7 years ago, it was to some people it was a nuisance, and to other people it was a lifeline. It's gone. So our lifestyle has changed, and our way of getting about has changed. Also, there are fewer younger people are buying cars, so they are going to be using taxis and private hire and other such things. So we're in a state of flux at the moment, and my view is that we should listen to the expert. If this is what the trade believes is the right way for them, they're the people who are earning the money and going to have to live off it. I believe that we should go along with what is suggested. That all these different details about what is good for women at night, of course, as a woman or as anybody else in this room is concerned, we all ought to be safe. But we've got to, for us not to go along with what's been suggested, I think would be wrong. I don't see how anybody's being badly treated by this suggestion. There are pros and there's cons, and there's some increases and some decreases and timings. But yeah, the fact that taxi drivers, Hackney drivers feel that there's not enough trade between 10 and 12 is an interesting fact. But we don't see the queues of people queuing up down Old Christchurch Road, desperate for a taxi. There's nothing in Old Christchurch Road to cause that to happen. So my view is we should go along with this, and I'd like to propose that we do agree the paper as set out.
Thank you, Councillor Filer. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. Slightly off the wall here, but this is one of the only committees that I've sat on over the last sort of 11 years where the recommendation does not come from officers. And for example, if you go to a planning committee meeting, you will always have a recommendation from the officer to grant or whatever. Sorry, we have one. Yeah. Sorry,
would you like me to read it?
Well, I've seen the recommendation on the report.
Is that A, we approve the changes?
Sorry?
A, we approve the changes.
I'm looking at the wrong recommendation then, am I?
Item 7.
Item 7 on the front page.
Maximum fares and charge.
So what page are you on?
59.
59.
59. 59.
Oh. Members consider, sorry, approve the changes for the amendments, refuse the proposed change, recommendations. This is recommended, and then we're given 3 options.
3 options, and it's just been proposed at option 1.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but that's come from a member. We haven't had a recommendation from officers. Because the point here being that the officers are the experts and I'm not.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Nananka.
Licensing, unlike planning, doesn't provide for officers to make an opinion. We are neutral. We are Switzerland. I don't know why, it's always been this way. So we provide the recommendations, and it's your decision, not ours. It's because you're quasi-judicial, and the decision that you make is subject to legal challenge. Therefore, it's not an officer decision or recommendation. We just provide you with all of the options and the information that you need to make a reasoned decision.
Thank you very much for that. But also, the planning is quasi-judicial as well, and it's very obviously, you know, if that's the way it's always been done, I can't help but challenge that. But anyway, I think we shouldn't probably go into a debate about this.
Anchor. Councillor Howell.
Can I just seek some clarification on the multi-vehicle situation, because it says that we're proposing to reduce all the to remove the charges for additional passengers as extras. So does that mean that the table, which is on page, well, it's not on the page 69, that's going to reduce from 6 items to 3 items, 3 tariffs? Or am I confusing something here?
Confusing me.
Because this table here, it has 3 tariffs for up to 4 passengers and 3 tariffs for 5 to 8 passengers. But if we're not charging according to the number of passengers, then that'll only be 3 tariffs, not 6 tariffs.
No.
Trudy?
Yeah, no. The original, if you look to appendix, 2, which is the current fares. So say you got in a vehicle, there was 3 of you and you had 3 suitcases, you would be charged, depending on which tariff it was, an extra 20p per person, either one, and per piece of luggage. So you would be charged, you know, for 3 people or 4 people, you'd be charged 60p for the people and 80p for the luggage.
Yeah.
That is being absorbed into all of the fares. But if you want a vehicle that has more than 4 passengers, so 5 to 8, you would normally have to ask for another vehicle to come if they haven't got a vehicle so big. So the idea is that if they're charging 5 to 8 passengers, that will be the fixed fare for that. There won't be any.
So previously, we're double charging.
Previously, they were just
so basically, you have to pay for a vehicle that would take 5 people, and you'd each have to pay additional as 5 people. So
yes,
that seems crazy.
And if you was more than 1 passenger in any vehicle, you'd be charged for every subsequent passenger, regardless of how big the vehicle was, and every piece of luggage, regardless of how big the vehicle was.
Yeah.
Now you're charged either for the number of passengers up to 4 and over 4. So even if you get in a vehicle that's got 8 passenger seats, if there's only 2 of you, we'll still only be charged the tariff 1.
Okay, that's very useful clarification. You know, I would still say that it would be beneficial to have a 1-person rate, but it sounds like that trade are not.
If you had a 1-person rate, there's still the same amount of, you know, diesel, petrol, and use and abuse of the vehicle, so to speak.
Yeah, but in terms of you know, customer benefiting the customer, making it taxes more accessible to women who might be vulnerable late at night.
I was just sort of thinking, if you think about just the tariffs, previously tariff 1 for 1 passenger, that there wouldn't be an extra passenger in it, so that's all they would be charged.
Yeah.
So if somebody else got in, there's extra charges. Now that they're all tariff 1.
Yeah, so proportionally, the single passenger is actually being penalised now because they're being equated with everybody else, whereas before they paid less than.
But there are no extras.
No, they
with
wouldn't
this
have paid
proposal?
extra. That's what I'm saying. They wouldn't have paid extras because they're a single passenger.
They would have paid extras if they had luggage and things, and they won't pay that extra now either.
Yes, but if they don't have luggage, then they're being penalised, aren't they, as a single passenger? And for the reasons I said earlier, I mean, it's like it feels like the taxi trade's shooting itself in the foot. Admittedly, they can. Well, you say they can negotiate. I mean, that's completely new to me, the concept of negotiating a taxi driver, and I would have thought that trying to out negotiate a taxi driver is quite a difficult thing to do.
It is a maximum fare. They can't charge above it.
Yeah, no,
but they
I mean,
can charge
practically
below it.
speaking, have you ever negotiated a taxi?
Yes.
I don't
driver
use
owned?
those.
I don't know.
Don't say that.
Because how do you even do it? Because you don't. I mean, you negotiate the
Well,
rates
I
because you
suppose
don't
it's
know
like you
what the
ask if
final
there's a
fee is
discount,
when you get
isn't
into it, do you? So you have to say, well, give me 10 pence off your rate or something like that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously I've been completely naive all my life that I can't negotiate with taxi drivers like that. So.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, just back to the point I made just now. Is it reasonable for me to ask officers if they have an opinion about the acceptability of these changes?
Sloping shoulders there. To be honest with you, I think it brings us in line with other local authority areas. I think our chart is clearer for passengers. If you look at other authority areas, it just says 4 or more passengers, 1.5 times the rate. We've set out the tariff, so it's very clear and the expectation of anyone getting into the vehicle, they know what they're going to be charged. And I think, if you don't want to get into a vehicle, you don't have to. You don't have to use a hackney. There's other methods. There's private hire. You can shop around. There's a lot more operators. There's a lot more choice out there these days. So, if it was me, I would be supportive of this. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Nanka. Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've listened to the presentation from David and the comments from other people and stuff. I have to say, I completely agree with this. I think it makes life a lot. It provides clarity and certainty for both users of the taxis, but also the taxi drivers, because I can imagine they're put under a degree of pressure to charge extras, and it's quite ambiguous at points. And I also think, going back to the safety issue, if we've got a really clear structure and the pricing mechanism is very clear, I think it overcomes that uncertainty that passengers have if they're going to get into a taxi. So I think it ticks lots of boxes in that sense. So I would be very, very supportive of this. Thank you.
Are you happy to second the proposal, Councillor? Thank you very much. Right, so is there any further debate? It's been proposed and seconded that we approve the changes, bearing in mind that members of the public have 14 days to voice their opinions back to the authority. Can I have a show of hands, please? All those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you, members. David, we only have one item left on our agenda, but you're more than welcome to retire if you so wish. Okay. Thank you. Members, item 8 on this morning's agenda is the forward plan. Nanka.
Thank you. So the forward plan, the first 2 items of actually what we've been listening to today. Item 3 is the pleasure boats and boat persons licensing policy. So the draft is out for consultation at the moment, which you approved last year. It's proposed for the 20th of May, but I actually have to be honest, and I would like members to agree putting it back to September. The consultation only finished yesterday. We need time to go through that and give it, full consideration. And with the timescales for reporting, we would only have a few weeks to get it all done and the reports made for you ready for May. And I don't think we've got the capacity at the moment. I've got to be honest. and I'd rather do it right than fast. So if I would hope that would go to September, but then you've got a new item that you won't have heard before: animal licence fees for consideration from one of my colleagues, Louise Jones, the Environmental Health Manager, and that's proposed for the 20th of May as well. And that's it for committee hearings.
Thank you, Nananka. Are members happy that we move those dates back to September for item 3 and item 4?
No, only item 3.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Beg your pardon. Item 3? Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nananka. Councillor Farr.
Could I just ask what the animal licence fees, what it actually encompasses of animals?
It's the licensing of animal boarding establishments. I think. Yeah.
Well, we don't get lions and tigers, then that's disappointing.
I thought I'd
The
just
kennels,
ask, I'm a-
catteries,
I'm a
people, home
trustee-
boarders, those type of.
I thought I'd better ask. I'm a trustee of the RSPCA with the vet service that they do.
Oh,
I just wanted
okay.
to see if it crossed
Yeah.
over at all. Thanks.
No, okay.
Do we want to just run through the briefings and training sessions at all, Nananka? Okay, right. Okay, there being no further business to conduct, I'll now close the meeting. Thank you, members.